Wow. One reports that Canelo versus Bivol did an estimated 133,000 buys on US TV pay-per-view, but majority of the viewership and the viewers watched on DAZN. What does this mean? Find out in this video. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you come in and smash the like button. Now, these are reports from Juan, and they have access to Nielsen reporting or the TV, cable, satellite feeds, and they looked over the information. As far as the person, Jedi Goodman, this is someone who's frequently giving you guys actually should follow him if you're on Twitter and you're interested in boxing. He's a former executive producer, and he always has basically the numbers you can always find for UFC. It's not just boxing, but like he lets you know UFC is just a lot of information, statistical information. So 133,000. Now, full disclosure, this does not include DAZN. DAZN is its own company, and they have an app. So that information is kept private unless the company elects to actually release the information to the public. But as far as I'm concerned, this is still disastrous because traditionally Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao, my want to is up to my promoter. Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor's UFC fights, etc. These fights have all been made available, and these guys have done millions of pay-per-views, including Canelo when he was on HBO and Showtime. He's doing millions of pay-per-views, and majority of the viewership is coming from not the apps or PlayStation 5 or Xbox, but majority of the viewership is coming from TV, cable, and satellite, right? If you look at Canelo versus Caleb Plant, that particular fight had a live gate of $18 million. I know for a fact that this fight did not match that gate in Las Vegas. This fight, the information is not fully out, but you can look at if you've been in the business a while, you can kind of gather these things based on the crowd, the level of hype, and, the price points of the ticket. The Canelo tickets were being slashed. So usually if the event is big enough, you're having a hard time getting a ticket. If it's really big, like Mayweather Pacquiao, or the tickets are ridiculously expensive, they're not being slashed in half the day before the fight, things like that, unless they're just trying to fill it out. So, conventional wisdom tell you this fight was not as successful. Speaking of successful, Canelo was not successful in staying unbeaten, since the Floyd Mayweather fight, and he lost the fight. And not only did he lose the fight, he lost the fight bad. So all in all, this fight looks like a bust. Again, we don't have the actual DAZN numbers, but here's the thing. Use a little bit of common sense. If DAZN was happy about the numbers, when Katie Taylor, a couple weeks before Canelo Bivol, when Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano had an instant classic fight, days later, we seen these graphics made and put out by DAZN stating that, oh man, 1.5 million, the most globally viewed women's fight in women's boxing history, and this and that. So if Canelo did jet-setting, record-breaking numbers versus Bivol, then why wouldn't the company race out and publicize and make that public to let the world know that this event was a financial success? Like, it just doesn't make sense. For example, why would Showtime hide the Mayweather-McGregor numbers? They wouldn't. The fight is, I believe, number 2 highest grossing fights, just behind Mayweather versus Pacquiao. So that's usually what happens. It just looks like, let's say Instagram. You look on Instagram, people have their betting slips. Like, oh, I won money off Bivol. But what people aren't going to show you is the betting slips when they're gambling and losing. So this is just common sense. If people who gamble and sports bet frequently, you win some, you lose some. There's no one out there that's perfect, that gets it right 100% of the time, and people are only going to post their highlights. Same thing like Instagram. Instagram is basically a highlight reel. Oh, I'm getting married. Oh, it's my birthday. Look how many people came out. Look at the gifts I got. Oh, I bought a new car. If you get your car repoed, are you going to put it on Instagram and say, hey, y'all, you know, maybe a select few people, but a lot of people would be too embarrassed. So just keep that in mind when you look at the world and how things work. If you buy a new car, you're showing and dangling the keys and posting a picture at the dealership, signing papers. You want people to see that. But most people, if they got their car repoed, they're not going to be in a rush to show you pictures of, you know, your car being hoisted up on a tow truck bed and taken away because you failed to make your monthly installments or your car note, right? So I really believe this whole event was a bust for Canelo Alvarez, DAZN, Eddie Hearn, and Rematch Room. Again, we don't have the official numbers from DAZN, but if there's a huge spike in TV, cable, and satellite, which those numbers are accessible, then you would expect good traction on the actual app. But the way this fight was promoted, or lack thereof, and you know how people were feeling, people got juiced because they seen a bunch of people on the Vegas Strip at the weigh-in. But I told you guys that there's a lot of, especially Eddie Hearn and DAZN, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors there. You know, people, they want the event to look live, but I told you the trick is to get those people who are on the Vegas Strip and commit them to buy the pay-per-view. Commit them to, you know, showing up to your event. That's a whole different beast. Anybody could be walking drunk up the Vegas Strip or sober up the Vegas Strip looking for the Shake Shack, and then they see a large gathering and a large group of people, and they decide, hey, what's this? And they're like, oh, this redhead Mexican superstar, you know, he's about to weigh in. So they just check it out. It's Vegas. This happens all the time. I've seen Michael Jackson impersonators. I've seen Transformers, people dressed like M&Ms, break dancers, girls with their bodies out. I've seen all this type of stuff on the Vegas Strip. Ask anyone who lives there. So that wasn't really concerned with that. But as far as this fight being a financial success, there's no indication that leads us in the direction. Again, if Canelo did great numbers, how come DAZN never releases any of his numbers in terms of his buy rate? But you would think if he broke Floyd Mayweather's records, right, and they had a way to prove it, why would DAZN hoard this information? They would be like, man, we stumbled on a jackpot. We got this Mexican fighter out of Guadalajara, Mexico. He's red-haired, and he's killing all of Floyd's numbers. He's generating more money for Vegas than Floyd Mayweather did. That would be brag-worthy. That would be something that you gloat about. That would be something that you would want the public to see. So to me, I really believe, like I've always maintained, this wasn't the fight that people were asking. And the sad thing is Canelo had many options being who he was. He could have fought David Benavidez. He could have fought Charlo, Errol Spence. We all found this information out. And those are American broadcasters. When you teamed up with Showtime, you did the closest that you've done to 1,800,000. You did an $18 million gate. You had a sensational buildup and epilogue working with Steven Espinoza and Showtime, and you run back to Eddie Hearn. And then you run back to Eddie Hearn, a British promoter. The event is not promoted good. There wasn't great shoulder programming. It wasn't on, you know, a linear network like Showtime. And then on top of all other things, in terms of this being a financial success, they overpaid you and it wasn't a financial success. And they're saying your numbers on cable as the face of boxing are 133,000. So I think Canelo, for the first time in a long time, maybe if not ever, this is the most damage control and the most damage for his brand that he's suffered. So it's going to be real interesting times to see how he bounces back or tries to bounce back from this, because there's so many things that went awry, so many different things that didn't really make sense in the end when you look back on it. Luckily for you guys, I do a great job here, and I told you all this stuff and I warned you. The Showtime PBC deal, first of all, if he would have fought Charlo, Errol, David Benavidez, styles make fights. Maybe he beats those guys. Possibly, you know, especially Charlo, Errol Spence, they would be moving up in weight. Bivol looks like he had your number. Now you're in between a rock and a hard spot. And according to the reports, doesn't look like, at least on TV, you did 133,000. You know, these aren't face of boxing type of numbers. Errol Spence is basically showing himself to be like capable of producing these numbers. You know, Gervonta Davis is producing crazy live gauge. Wait till Tank fights Rolly and see I could go on and on. The world of boxing at large, especially old media, say Canelo's the face of boxing, but then Gervonta Davis, he's going to have more people in the Barclays and probably generate more money at less cost. You know, no disrespect, Tank is eating and making money, but what DAZN is paying Canelo is absurd, you know? And I'm not saying it as a point of hate. These fighters are risking their lives, so I get that. But I'm saying in no other business can you get paid $53 million or whatever DAZN is paying and you don't do your share of the promoting, or your events aren't generating that much. Like even Conor McGregor, when he was losing in the UFC to Nate Diaz and things like that, he was promoting the hell out the fight and making people want to buy the fight. And who the fuck is that? Like he's saying all these things, and you know, he's responsible for the success of the pay-per-view, even in defeat. Canelo, he's walking around in his pajamas golfing, and like, how many people got an exclusive Canelo Alvarez interview? Just really ask yourself the questions that I'm posing. How many people have an exclusive the week of the Bivol fight? How many YouTubers got an exclusive Canelo, you know, not like a media scrum or him walking off the stage and, you know, he speaks to the media, but I'm saying they went to his room and then they were able to interview him, you know? Or they have, because when Deontay Wilder fought Tyson Fury, Blue, he went to Deontay Wilder's room and was able to provide coverage and get, you know, an inside look and inside scoop at Wilder preparation days before a massive Vegas fight. How many people got that with Canelo Alvarez? See, that's what I'm saying. You're not promoting, and boxing, they just accept it and say, oh, but then they complain about Crawford doesn't promote well. Crawford's numbers don't look too far off from this, at least on TV. So if DAZN wants to prove me wrong, which I know they can't, but if they want to, release Canelo's numbers. Release his numbers. How much did the pay-per-view do? Show us the intangibles. Show us the stats. And I doubt that comes out. Let me know how I did in this video. Subscribe if you like it. If you don't, subscribe. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video, Ego Son. The future is now. The Hibernation 5s by Kenichi Bear. Hybrid gaming and lifestyle headphones. Out of the box, you can connect to any console or PC. Bluetooth ready with a low latency USB adapter, color RGB, and extreme bass mode. The Hibernation 5s adjust to you. Whether you need a gaming, travel, gym, or lifestyle headphones, the Hibernations got you covered. The new Hibernation 5s, link in the description. Customize the way you hear the world. Welcome to the nation.